I am assuming that everybody here is familiar with Wikipedia. Yes? Okay, Wikipedia. I want to start by sharing a definition off of Wikipedia for the human revolution. It's a term used by archaeologists and anthropologists and other people who specialize in human origins, and it refers to the spectacular and relatively sudden revolutionary emergence of language, consciousness, and culture in our species. Okay, now we're going to come back to that definition, but I wanted to share that with you sort of to kick this off. So we're going to go back in history a little bit. 1900, average life expectancy, 32 years, population, 1.6 billion people. The top 3 industries in 1917, steel, oil and gas, and mining. Jump ahead, 1967, oil and gas, tech, and telecom. Between 1900 and 1990, we had a lot of really cool inventions. Lots of them were to help with home conveniences, like the vacuum cleaner, for example. We also saw the first powered flight, television, and the concept of the robot was actually first introduced in 1921 in a play. So it wasn't a real concept at that point, it's real today, but in 1921 we were talking about a robot. 1947, transistors, holograms, artificial intelligence, and the first mobile phones. Internet, late 1960s, although it wasn't popular, and in the mid-70s, personal computers. Now we are in 2016, just a couple years ago. Life expectancy doubled, population 7 billion. It took over 200,000 years of human history for the world's population to reach 1 billion, and only 200 years more to reach 7 billion. Life expectancy, people born today, literally, March 3rd, 105. People are expected to live to 105. Retirement age is expected and forecasted to be 85, with a population today, 7.6 billion. In 2017, our top industries were tech, financial services, and the medical healthcare industry. 1990, the 3 largest companies were in Detroit, which is where I am from, by the way. Ford, Chrysler, GM. And that is where my family all worked. Today, those top 3 companies are in the Silicon Valley. Anyone want to take a guess? Google, Facebook, and Apple. Yep, absolutely. And those 3 companies, so not even counting the other tech companies, those 3 companies are creating 30 times more market value with about 1/10 of the employees that the big 3 automotive companies were creating. So let's take a look at some of the forces that are shaping work. So I just want to touch on a few of these. Big data, large, complex data sets, computing trends, patterns, associations. Technology, it's not really the technology itself. What it is, it's the pace of innovation and that disruption is accelerating. So it's not about the technology itself, it's about the pace, and it's about the pace of innovation and the disruption that's accelerating. So for some perspective, telephone was invented in 1876. It took 100 years for adoption. And it was in the 1960s when we saw 80% of households having landlines, which is why it took so long for that adoption. The tablet computer saw 50% adoption in 5 years. In 1970, there were about 4 billion people in the world, not a single mobile phone subscriber at that time. In 2016, 7 billion people in the world, 6 billion mobile cellular phone subscriptions. So just think about the pace and the acceleration of technology. And then the last one I want to touch on is the socially connected world, and you've heard a little bit about connection tonight from some of the other speakers as well. In 2008-2009, Bob Johansen, who is from the Institute for the Future out in Palo Alto, and someone who I admire, a friend of mine, he wrote a book called Leaders Make the Future, or Leaders Make the Future, 10 New Skills for Leadership in an Uncertain World. And he talked about, one of those skills is called smart mob organizing. And that is where you engage in socially connected networks, and you begin to communicate and create things, which then leads to another skill, which is called commons creating. And commons creating has to do with creating assets in a collaborative type of a manner, shared by everybody, which then not only benefits individuals, but creates even more competition, which actually then betters each of the individuals or the company. Back to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a really good example of commons creating. Wikipedia is not invented by one person. It's not like one person sat down and wrote up a whole bunch of definitions. Wikipedia is an ongoing, dynamic tool available to any single person sitting in this room, any single person sitting around the globe. You can go in, you can update definitions, and of course there are some downsides and dangers related to this as well, but think of the power of people around the globe creating a tool for people around the globe. It's really, really cool. And I think everybody said that they have heard of and or use Wikipedia. So to an extent, it is very, very valuable for us. Okay, human revolution. So I'm just going to kind of look at the bottom three here. So we're in this time where we just have rapid change, pervasive change. And companies need every single employee to tap into every ounce of resourcefulness that they have to be the best that they can possibly be. And the tools that we use to help our employees and the tools that we use ourselves as employees and leaders are extremely important. And one way to look at the human revolution is that emerging consciousness. So I would propose to all of you that the future is here. Everything that we've been talking about is here now. We have machine learning, we have artificial intelligence, we have the technology that's driving how we actually work in the world today. So we need to look at how do we thrive in the 21st century workplace. So the first few things that are listed here, foundational literacies, competencies, character qualities, these are things that we've been talking about for years. So we had leaders in the 1900s, we have leaders today. We had tools in the 1900s, we have tools today. So it's not the what, it's the how. So because of globalization and all the other things that have happened in the world, over the last century, the skills that we need now are different because of the environment that we work in and because of this pervasive change. So it's not that we don't need interpersonal skills, and it's not that we don't need communication skills, and it's not that we don't need some very basic literacies. All of those things are very, very important. But what we really need to do is focus on the skills for the future. So the first skill is maker instinct. Maker instinct is our ability to exploit our inner drive that we all have as human beings to grow and to build things. Every single person in this room has a maker instinct. It's actually part of being a human being. And if you think about it at its most basic level, as humans, we like to make things. We like to make food. We like to make books. We like to make friends. So you can put any word after the word make, and we like to make things. We have this inner desire to make things. And it's our ability to exploit that and get clear about what that is, and then connect that to our social connection networks that will help us thrive in the 21st century. Clarity is another skill that Bob Johansen had talked about, and that's our ability to see through messes and contradictions and to see a future that other people may not be able to see quite yet. Dilemma flipping is the third skill that he talks about. And dilemma flipping proposes that we no longer have to deal with problems. What we have are dilemmas. And the difference, it's not semantics, the difference between problems and dilemmas is that problems have solutions. Dilemmas do not have solutions. There are many, many outcomes for a dilemma, and in all cases there are risks, there are challenges, there are downsides, there are cons. In all cases, when you are looking at a dilemma, whatever decision you might make, there is a trade-off. And so having the ability and having the skill to be able to flip the dilemma and somehow come up with an opportunity is what the skill is all about. Bioempathy is the next one, and it's our ability to see things from nature's point of view, to understand not just nature from a bio-nature perspective, but to actually understand how the world is actually interconnected. So looking at how things are organic and seeing how we actually interact with the other parts of the world. Constructive depolarizing is the next one, and it's actually my favorite one. So we live in this global world, and one of our skills that we all need to develop is cultural competency. And so cultural competency, we typically aren't just born with it. So constructive depolarizing has to do with our ability to calm tense situations where differences dominate. It does not have to do with moderating a debate. I have an opinion, you have an opinion. It's not that. What it is it's we all come from different worlds, different cultures, different backgrounds. And our ability to figure out how we learn from each other and how we lift each other up is what constructive depolarizing is really all about. The next one is quiet transparency. And this has to do with being open and authentic about what matters most, and to be able to do it in a way where we're not overly self-promoting. And it's very, very difficult to fake authenticity. I mean, you either are authentic or you're not authentic. You either are curious or you're not curious. So quiet transparency is this ability to really be true to who you are and to be true who you are with other people as you're working with them. Rapid prototyping is another one, and that has to do with creating early innovations and basically failing a lot in order to succeed. And then we talked a little bit about smart mob organizing and commons creating. So those are 10 skills that individuals can work on and that organizations can work on. What's interesting is these have been around and have been talked about since 2008, 2009, and very few companies are actually incorporating them into their everyday language and their everyday skill set. Okay, so I do want to end with a final poll. So I'm interested to know, to what extent are your technology and HR leaders aligned in their vision for transforming the future of work? And when we talk about alignment, as you're pulling up the poll, we're talking about shared vision, we're talking about shared accountability, we're talking about a mutual understanding. So it's not just I do a part and you do a part. Well, it's good to see that we are mostly aligned at this point. I don't see anybody saying that we're totally aligned. And what I would purport for the future is that it is absolutely essential for HR leaders and technology leaders at the top to be 100% totally aligned on the goals and the vision for the future of work. It's not about technology driving decisions that we make. It's not about HR leaders being the customer for the IT leaders. It's not about the opposite, where technology is serving HR leaders. It's about 100% total alignment as we go into the future of work. Thank you.